The Broad Street Review podcast is an extension of Broad Street Review, Philly's home for arts, culture, and conversation, an online arts and culture journal covering the greater Philadelphia area. This podcast is an Emory production. I'm your host, Darnelle Radford. Today on the podcast, Ross Beschler drops in to talk about the Wilma Theater production, A Summer Day by Jan Fossa, directed by Yuri Yernov, on stage through June 29th. Here is my interview with Ross Beschler for A Summer Day. And welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Darnelle Radford, and today I'm in the virtual studio with the Wilma Theater to talk about the final production of the season, A Summer Day by Jan Fosse, directed by Yuri Yernov, one of the co-artistic directors of Wilma Theater. And I am here with one of the artists in the show, who is also a Hothouse member, Ross Beschler. Ross, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Darnelle. It's nice to be here.
Ross, we've known each other for a long time. Have we ever had a chat on the podcast?
I think we have, but I think it was a long time ago. Or I don't, you know what? Maybe not. I certainly listened to a lot of them, so I feel...
I know. And I've always had impromptu conversations with you that when I walked away, I was like, that would have been a great recording.
And also, just for the playwright who is Norwegian's name is Jan Fosse.
Jan Fosse?
Yeah, Fosse.
Wow, I saw that and went right to musical theater.
Exactly. There is a version of this that is Fosse does Fosse that could be interesting, but that's not exactly.
Okay, so I stand corrected. Jan Fosse. Fosse. All right. Okay. So this is the final show of the season.
Oh, cool.
And
it's our final show of the season, right? Yes.
Right? Is it?
It is. It feels like, yes. I don't know. It feels like summer is here and the call of the outside is strong. And, but in we go into the depths.
Yeah, but it has been an interesting season for Wilma, as they all are. So, this ending, we should expect nothing less than a wonderful experience. But Ross, you are a Hothouse member. So tell us, how long you've been a Hothouse member, what it's like to be a Hothouse member.
Sure. I have been, the company has been officially in existence since 2015. And I would say it's been kind of, and so actually this year is its 10-year anniversary, or some kind of event about that. Although I would say it's been unofficially an idea and a working group since about 2011. Starting with a production of Our Class, which is one of the first shows where we started to the women started to work in a very, very ensemble oriented way, investing a lot of time and energy into ensemble excavation of a text, which goes sort of beyond rehearsal and goes into like spending deep time using the rehearsal space and the rehearsal time to do dramaturgical excavation of what's going on in the text, to manifest that in space and physicality and breath and voice and in deep listening and deep ensemble trust. Some shows, and it was also a show about some particularly difficult events during the Holocaust, during World War II, and so it required an awful lot of depth and trust and seriousness. And it was just a revelatory way of working. And by 2015, there was a more official Hothouse acting ensemble at the Wilma that trains together regularly, that excavates and explores texts, different ways of working, works with directors domestically and abroad. A lot of international artists have showed up to work with us. I think because our ways of training and ways of working have sort of created a almost signature ensemble sense of risk taking, of diving into unknown territory, and both elevating it, excavating it, throwing it into relief. We're a strong group of performers, and there's a strong ethos of being a vessel for the work, of being a vessel for the text, which is relatively un-American in its basic stance, and that's been very exciting for me to be part of. For me, getting involved with Hothouse was sort of like, as someone who studied theater in school, feels like being involved in some of the like European ensembles, like that Stanislavski had, and that Grotowski had, in a way that I would never have imagined would be part of my professional career in the American theater. And the ability to have that has been just astonishing, life changing, and art changing. I've had the opportunity to work on incredible scripts, to work with really amazing and interesting artists, to develop very, very deep connections with my fellow actors, and also to have this very rare opportunity to have an art life that is deeply connected to a theater making institution, the Wilma. I don't feel like my relationship to the Wilma is very different from just being a freelance artist who goes from theater to theater. My relationship there is deeply involved. I've actually just spent the last 3 years being the Hothouse representative to the Wilma, one of the Hothouse representatives to the Wilma board. So I've actually been involved in the Wilma on an administrative level, on an educational level, on an oversight level, in ways that I don't know that I would be capable of or interested in doing anywhere else.
Wow, that's great. I feel like the Hothouse members, when they reach other stages, like the whole process of Hothouse comes with them, and and it sort of rubs off on everybody. So I always say it's going to be a great production if you've got a Hothouse member in it.
Well, I think one of our goals, and I think we've sort of clarified that for ourselves recently, is been kind of to change American theater, or to provide and so for me, it's really interesting to see that happen, because that feels like something that we wanted to happen. That it's not about just doing the work we're doing here, but making some templates and making some setting some working ways that can maybe filter out into the larger culture. So that's cool. I really love that's something that you see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so you explained it as deep work using the rehearsal time for dramaturgical excavation. Under Hothouse, have you thought about like previous productions that you'd been in that were not Hothouse related, and where they like the differences? Have you looked? It's interesting because the piece sort of asks you that too. This piece sort of asks you, like, have you replayed a moment in your mind? And I was going to ask about that, but like when you think about the work that you're doing with Hothouse, and then think about some work you've done in the past, can you see like clear differences? Not necessarily problematic, but like,
No,
wow,
not
this is
problematic. I mean,
elevated
no, the
focus.
differences come down to, look, like rehearsal. I've never been in a place where rehearsal wasn't a place where some kind of invention was happening, where some kind of discovery was happening. I mean, I think part of the point of rehearsal is to make discoveries, is to learn things about the characters, to learn things about the play. I do find that at other theaters, both due to where the time is budgeted, and also the way people are used to working, that a director will come in with a very, very strong idea of what's happening, what's already happening. The design will already exist, the basic conceits will already exist, and there are discoveries to be made within that. But you're really looking to the director to bring kind of everything, to have that production sort of springing forth pretty much whole from their head. And I find that my work at the Wilma, especially because we do work together as an ensemble most Mondays of the year, and very often we're getting together to sort of do some of this work on plays that are going to be produced a year, 2 years out. So, for example, Summer Day, there have been Hothouse sessions where we've gotten together, and the director Yuri has come in with various proposals and curiosities and questions that we as a group, not just the people who are going to be cast in the show, but the whole group are making proposals about our investigating or trying out. It's like, what if the one, I know that one of the things we worked with a while ago was like, what if this couple and the central two of the central characters of this play are a couple who live together in a house very far outside of a city in Norway. And it's a big old house. And we started doing some sort of etudes, improvisations, scene works where we were finding activities about that, like working on this house, fixing this house, looking through boxes of old light bulbs to repair things. And there were some really, really amazing like ways of being and staging ideas, and I think maybe design ideas that came out of that work. And that, that's just one little, we did one day on that. And this was long before the show was anywhere near getting into rehearsal or design process.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's just, there's a combination of where the resources are being directed, and the time that's being allowed for that to happen. I think that is, if we have a secret sauce, it is sort of the time and intention to start working pretty early on, but also to work together as a group. And in fact, interestingly, when we started, I remember that day, we worked on that day, and I was so excited to work on the script because I knew I wasn't going to be involved in this show. The show had been cast. Actually, I was only cast in this show pretty recently, in the last month or two, because one of the other Hothouse members who was cast in it was going off to a different opportunity that took him out of the show, and so I was put in pretty on the late side. And so that work that I'd been doing it already is there with me, coming into the rehearsal room with me.
That's great. It was like you were preparing for an unexpected.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So let's get into it. Let's talk about A Summer Day. First, tell me when it was first introduced to Hothouse.
Gosh, I think, there's a season selection process at the Wilma, like any other theater. There's, people find plays and look for plays. And, it's always I find one of the big questions in the world is how do you plan a season? Where do you get ideas from? And you get them everywhere. I think you're following your instinct. And the truth is, I don't know where this play came from. I don't know. I think it may have been Yuri, but it may have been one of the artistic directors who brought it to the table. I do know that it had a production in New York in 2016, maybe. And I think, with Karen Allen in the lead. Is that right? Hold on, I want to look this up because I think it's interesting. I think Summer Day. Oh wow, right. Was it Karen Allen? It was Karen Allen, and it was at the Cherry Lane Theater, which is a small off-Broadway theater in New York City. And it was 20. Oh God, it was 2012. It was 2012, so it was a while ago. One of the things that's changed is Jan Fosse just won the Nobel Prize this year. So I think his profile is very high, and I think it's always very interesting to see, because he's a playwright, but he's a novelist and a poet as well. And so it's really, really interesting to see someone who has won such a nationally prestigious literary award also be a playwright. I feel like that's rarer than it used to be, perhaps.
I see. He's the first playwright to win a Nobel.
Well, I don't think he's won the Nobel for his plays. I mean, I think he's won won the Nobel for his body of work, but he is more. He is a novelist. Like his novels exist, his plays exist. And I think if he were just a playwright, I don't think he would have the profile that he does. Playwrights in the world nationally don't seem to have the same profile that they did once upon a time, perhaps in the days that, like, Tennessee Williamses were writing, and then Samuel Beckett's were writing, and that has to do with a lot of things, including the way that the theater lives in the cultural reality of the world. Novels are still, I think, live in the academy, live in the zeitgeist in a different way. So I think so he's if I think actually what does it say in his what do they call him in his Nobel?
I know we keep calling. I saw a quote that said his innovative plays and prose, which give voice to
his
the
innovative plays and prose. All right, so his plays are even mentioned before his prose.
Yes.
So it may be that, but as a dramatist, he's very not known here in America. And like that was that 2012 production, and I think that was the last production of note that happened that I'm aware of, anyway.
Interesting. So
that's I think some of the reasons why it's like there's some things about it as a play that are interesting in terms of it. In terms of it as sort of like a piece of IP, shall we say?
Yeah.
But then what's inside the play? The language is beautiful and spare. It is, as we were talking about before the interview. The little promo video we've made for this involves an awful lot of water. And I think water is a recurring theme, texture, and rhythm in the play. The couple who are the subject of the play live on the water, and there is something about the rhythm of the language that is a lot like the waves. There is a sort of that are both relentless and periodic. There's something about like water and waves and depth kind of live inside the dramaturgical DNA of this play. And which makes sense for a guy from Norway who like the relationship, I think, up there to the fjords and the water is deep and intense.
Yeah.
There was this news item in the last week or two of the man in Norway who lives on a house on a fjord who woke up about a week or two ago to find that a cargo ship had crashed into his backyard about 2 feet away from his house.
Ow. What?
Like if it had been a few feet to the left or the right, or
oh man,
woken up with a cargo ship in his living room.
Okay, and woke up with it there, not waking up because of it.
Yeah. No, he woke up in the morning to discover, like, oh my god, which is just such a different relationship to the sea than we have. I mean, certainly here in New Jersey, Philly area where we have to drive an hour, but even I think it's very like it's just a totally different relationship to the water and the call of the water and what it does, and the cold and the ice and the flows, the fjords. The fact we don't have fjords here.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so if you were, let's say you're on Broad Street, you found a place, you want to go get a bite to eat, you see somebody in there that you tell them you're working on this show. How do you explain the show to them?
What would I say? Okay, come see the show. It's about like the mystery of living. It's about love and loss. It's about trying to understand the past and the people that we are and the people that we love, and how hard that is, and how yeah. I mean, it's about the movement of the play, the action of the play is a woman recalling a day many, many, many years ago where an event of huge importance for her life happened. And she continues to return to this day again and again and again to try to excavate what happened and why did it happen? This thing that was this giant life-changing event. Many, many years later, she's still trying to understand what it was and get her head around it and really understand it.
That I'm just thinking about over the years, there've been many stories where like I saw a Fringe piece years ago. I think it was New Paradise Laboratories called Fate Book,
I saw it.
where they show us the events leading up to a big moment that happens, but we get to see it from many different angles before we actually see what happened.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool because like as soon as I read that description, I was thinking about those moments. Like we're going back to that because we're missing something.
Uh-huh.
There have been a lot of stories like, plays, television, TV, movies that repeat a moment because something, hasn't been received, something hasn't been processed. So we keep going back there. I also think about it as like, if you think about you're in the rush, you're trying to leave the house and you're thinking phone, wallet, keys, there's something else you're missing and you can't find it, but you keep looking in the direction of where it is. You just don't believe it's there, but you keep being drawn to this and you're like, this it's somewhere. Like, why am I standing here in this room, like in this space, if I can't find this, it makes me think about that too. There's so many moments where your mind is telling you there's something here you need to know. You didn't pick it up right away, but let's keep returning to this moment until we find it.
Yeah. So there's an investigation. So there's an investigation at work, I think is sort of the action of the play.
Yeah. So what was your first impression of the piece? Like, what did you think after the first,
That it was beautiful, that it was sad, that it was repetitive. I think one of my biggest worries about it is that there's a repetitiveness to it because I think it has a bit of there is an obsessive quality to it. There is a return and a return and a return. And I think what I have since come to understand is that some of what it's about is the limits of our ability to solve problems but through language. And so there are characters who say some of the same things again and again and again, but they mean different things, and they're trying different. They have different intentions and different ways of trying to make themselves known or understand something. And so that repetitiveness is intended to be. It's intended to sort of demonstrate some of the limitations of language in our ability to express really deep, big things. I think one of the central dynamics in the play, and again, I keep returning to this young couple because they're sort of the central. Their relationship is kind of at the heart of the main event of the play, and there is a scene in which they're trying to explain. There's a core. There's this thing in the play that I don't want to talk about too much because I don't want to give too much of it away, but it means something to one of the characters in a way that they just find impossible to explain. And the other character is really desperately trying to understand because it feels like an existential problem, I think, for their relationship. Why is this thing so important? And in their attempts to explain it, they only have the same words we've already had to use. But they keep trying to use those words to explain it. And I guess, I think it's too pat to say there is no explaining it. I think the question goes to something deeper about like, what does it mean that it's so hard to explain it? What does it mean for us as we try to understand each other? What do we need from each other? Do we have to understand each other fully to live our lives? I don't know. Our director has talked a little bit about the moment that we're in right now, sort of like in this moment of history, this moment politically, where language is being used. Language is being used so. Language is being used in ways that are almost unfathomable. Like people say things and they mean other things. They say things and they think they mean one thing and they actually mean another. Just language. I think language has always had the capability for this, but right now it exists in the political realm in a way that feels like I can like see language deteriorating before my eyes, so that words stop meaning what I think they mean and start to mean less and less. And I think this play is it's not a political play at all, but it is about human communication and words. And I do think a bit about the breakdown of that, and you're left with people who are trying to just still navigate each other and how they live in the wake of that event.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about language being used in one way while meaning another. I feel like some of my closest, like the people closest to me, when I hear something, like sometimes we're using exaggeration to explain how hot it is or how long this day was, and but we're also sort of conditioning ourselves to believe that extreme is attached to it just being hot or it just being a long day, and then you kind of process that this is a day like no other, and so I can't draw comparisons to other days because this doesn't compare. And sometimes that explanate the language that people use, it's just trying to convey how important this is today, but it's an exaggeration that doesn't really clarify. It just sort of,
Yeah.
all right, you feel strongly about this, but but is it really a dumpster fire?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. So I find that it is sort of like messing around in things that I also find myself thinking about in my public life.
Mm-hmm.
But again, on the face of it, it's not about any of those things. It's about a couple who have moved to a house in the country. It's a little weird. There's something going on between them that they're having a hard time navigating. Some old friends come to visit, and people catch up with each other. And then there is a big event that changes the situation very deeply. And but it's all through the lens of somebody looking backwards at this day from a long time in the future.
Mm.
That's sort of asking us to watch this day with her and sort of like make sense of it.
Yeah. Tell us about your character, Man.
The man,
and
yeah,
how the man interacts with the couple.
Yeah, well, I mean, I show up a little later in the play after a lot of the groundwork has been established, and I think I'm there kind of both as an intrusion of like of like the real world, the real, there's the world in which you sit around and have a relationship crisis, and then there's the person who shows up and they have a 2.5 hour drive to get home, and they work in the city, and they've got very like sort of pressing immediate concerns. And I think I'm sort of there to I'm there to help us understand some of the difficulty of what's happened. I'm definitely a little bit there as some comic relief. I think by the time I enter, there's a lot of tension and a lot of everyone's on high alert, and I think I come in with a very, very different energy and a different point of view. And that's a lot of fun. That's a ton of fun.
I like the character that breaks things up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also it's just funny, like it makes me so Fosse is often compared to Ibsen. They call him like sort of a contemporary Ibsen, and I think that's partially because he and Ibsen are both Norwegian. But I find that there's something to that comparison, that the playwrights that he reminds me of more are Beckett, and maybe even more so Pinter. Both because of their Pinter and Beckett, both because of the way they use pauses and silences as punctuation. to carve out the theatrical space and create like psychological depth. But I think Pinter, especially thinking about this idea that like the language, that we're trying to use this language to do something, and that, or it's an investigation of memory. Pinter, more than almost any other playwright, I find a lot of his plays, the arena is memory, that we're working with each other, and we're trying desperately to define ourselves and figure out who we are. And especially in Pinter, you get really like you get characters who are ruthless, and that the ability to say like, hey, do you remember this time that you and I went to this other country and we did this thing together? That if that other character then says, no, I don't, that never happened, then all of a sudden who you are and what you are is under siege, is a threat. And I do think there is something like that going on in this. And so I think the man shows up and has a certain narrative and things he'd like to have happen, and has to sort of reckon with the fact that the people there have a very different agenda and a very different sense of time and space. And I think there's an event that happens that we never see the man again. And I think we learn at some point that it's by choice. There is also something about how do you preserve yourself? How do you preserve yourself when your sense of self is under assault? What do you do? Do you just like smile and laugh and say that everything is okay? Do you just never go to this place again?
It's definitely a moment that would stop you in your tracks, especially if you feel so like it feels so familiar to you, and you're like, what do you mean it didn't happen?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like,
and it's like, yeah. Go ahead.
I guess it's also if you believe one thing and the majority doesn't, you start to think like, am I wrong? You start to rethink and break down everything you are.
You start to feel absolutely crazy. Yeah, we're and I think that just has something to do with who we are as people. It's all well and good to say like, well, I believe something and I know something and that's good enough for me. But the truth is, we live in a web with each other, and if everyone around you is saying like, well, that's not true, that's going to affect you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's just like the conversation the country is having versus what's going on here in Philadelphia. Because it's easy to sometimes walk around and go, we're okay, right? And the news is like they're reporting the news literally standing in front of a dumpster fire. But it's like, and just like, how am I not seeing the same world? And I guess we kind of feel that way in the election process too. And it's like, how do this path feels like it benefits everyone. How are we not seeing this?
For me, I think the interesting argument is that like this sort of like distance between understanding is perhaps something that is essentially human. That like some of the things that make our lives what they are exist because of these spaces between our understanding. Like, it would be a really different world if we all really completely understood each other and knew exactly what we meant all the time. Like, it would be, the world wouldn't be what it is.
Yeah, it's like when you're having a tough day or a tough week and you long for I just want some peace. I just want to like not be overwhelmed by everything I was overwhelmed with by today or this week. But if it worked out like that, would our lives be interesting? Would we feel motivated to move forward in them? Like, sometimes these challenges in the moment, you're like, a challenge, but you get through it and you get on the other side of it and you're almost like, okay, I can kind of do anything now. Like, if I did that, maybe I can do more.
I think for me, it's helpful to think about the fact that it's like, if I am expecting everybody to understand each other and to use language the same way and to have the same understanding of history, then I am setting myself up for failure. I am setting myself up to have a very frustrating and unproductive experience in my interactions with the world.
Yeah.
But if I remember that people don't know what they mean, they don't know what they mean. They barely know what they mean.
Yeah.
Then I can understand that. I don't know. Then I think there's this possibility to understand that like everyone is sort of like creating meaning in the moment, moving forward, and I can participate in that in a way that is maybe more acknowledging of the reality around us, and then maybe that's more helpful in building consensus. Maybe that's more helpful in having meaningful conversations. To just not expect that when I say border, that everyone around me is even going to have the same idea of what that means. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And because there's not enough there, but maybe somebody who knows you, who has been part of a conversation, and that's all they need to reconnect to you. But you're right. It's like, I was just about to point out how, it's just, you can't be so like firm or sure of your own position. Sometimes there's a little bit of a concern there too. Like, I think people are often hesitant of being like, they're afraid to be corrected, but at the same time, sometimes people are just like, this is the absolute only position I would take, and they present it that way, and that is going to be challenged because someone agrees with this 80% of the way. They might their response is going to be a counter to that absolute position because you're only seeing it in the way that you've convinced yourself that this is the absolute position you're going to take. But it's often like, okay, I see that, but are you factoring in that these people over here who are not like you, who don't come from this particular space where you formed your opinion, are seeing this differently? And because someone's seeing it differently, doesn't that just prompt you to sort of kind of like unlock your, firmly placed position? And then there's a pride issue that comes in there. Sometimes it's hard to realize that you might not be correct.
Anyway, it all sounds very heady, and I think some of those things are deep inside of the play. But the reality is that it's about people trying to figure stuff out, trying to connect with each other, having the frustration of not being understood or not being able to feel at ease, of sort of facing a crisis together and looking to each other to like help each other out with the crisis, and either being able to or being unable to help out at all. It's just like the action of the play. Not that much happens. There's a few very simple things that happen, and we're left to sort of wonder if if we think that our protagonist has done the right thing, if they're continuing to do the right thing, if they need to move on with their lives, or really how we feel about the fact that they are just still looking back at this day and trying to figure out what it was. Do we I think there's a moment near the end between two characters where there's a clear communication of like, you just need to move on. You just need to move on. And I think for me, I'm interested in the audience. If the audience is going to say, yeah, that's right, that's exactly what needs to happen, or if they're going to say, no, I don't know. I understand why she wants to not. I'm curious to see what audience will feel about that. And I think there's some there's some sort of very, very, moving on is supposed to be a healthy thing. It's always supposed to be like, I think in our current society, moving on is a healthy thing. And I think this play just asks the question if that's true.
Yeah, that is an interesting question, because we never really think about like, okay, what if I just commit to moving on and then it returns to me, or maybe there's more clarity in the future because I moved on, that I might end up returning to this anyway. but
And
also
also like
the
what
standing
is I
still.
don't know, and what is life for? Like what are we doing? Yeah, I find that so I've been reading some of Jan Fosse's novels, which have a very different rhythm, I find, than his dramatic work. I thought that his novels might have some of the same start and stop rhythms of this play, but a lot of his novels are very stream of consciousness, and they go and they go and they go and they go and they go. But the ones that I've read so far involve people getting like real, like a lot of obsession, a lot of getting really stuck with images that they're working hard to move through, a lot of like being very confused about what the present and the past is right now. Um, and I think, yeah, they do ask this question about like, where am I supposed to live? Am I supposed to live in the past? Am I supposed to live in the present? Uh, yeah, I don't know. And I think that's been interesting for me to think about it in my life.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you before we end our chat today, is there a moment in your life that you have replayed in your mind?
Oh
And
gosh,
what have you learned
yeah.
in those
Oh
replays?
yeah. No, I think I think there are tons. There are tons of moments in my life that I've replayed. And what's interesting about that is that like the act of memory is a creative act.
Hmm.
That we tend to think of memory as something that like lives inside the synapses of our brains like an object, and that in order to remember it we're like opening a drawer that we haven't opened for a while and taking out
Hmm.
something. But the reality, and you may know this, is that the sort of like the way it works on a neurological level is that every time we remember something, we are recreating all the elements of that memory. We're retelling ourselves that story. And so every time we remember something, we are it's memory is not super reliable in that way because it's
Mhm.
always a retelling to yourself.
Yeah.
And I actually find myself I do this all the time in the morning. I find myself replaying moments, retelling myself moments as I do this thing where I do try to figure out like, what was that about? What was going on? And I don't always know what I'm looking for. I'm looking to, I don't know, maybe I'm looking to make sure that I was the hero in that story, that I did the right thing, that I understood what was going on, or if I feel like I wasn't, that if I feel like I really made some terrible mistakes, that I'm sort of like remembering that moment to sort of investigate for myself, like where could I have done something different?
Hmm.
Where where was the moment that everything changed? But I'm also just sometimes just telling myself the story of myself because I do feel like this sense of identity is so tenuous because we live in the moment, but the moment doesn't exist. The moment is the moment, you live in the moment and the moment's gone.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think a bit of a habit of revisiting moments in the past that felt like they meant something to me, that or something came out of it that I either missed or didn't understand at the time. And I go back and I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's what was going on. I feel like, sometimes, you encounter another moment, you encounter something in a movie or a story you encounter in the moment, and you look back and you say like, oh wow, I now I see what was going on in that moment that I didn't understand even for myself.
Hmm.
Because you ask yourself, why did that happen? Why did I do that? And then why did that lead to the next thing? And then, you go back and realize things like, oh, that thing I did probably really hurt that person an awful lot, in
Yeah.
ways that at the time you don't even let yourself understand because that's not what you're trying to do. You're just trying to survive.
Yeah. And it's
Um,
interesting. Some people cloud their minds with so many things, like, you know, they take on extra responsibility, or they're like involved in too many things that don't have anything to do with them, so that it's like completely consuming their brain, so that they don't have any time to sort of unpack their own life.
yeah.
And it's just interesting how it's so valuable to kind of go back to those moments and be like, what was I trying to say there, or where was I going? Um, and yeah, like we don't spend enough. I mean, many don't spend enough time kind of understanding themselves or trying to understand themselves, just sort of living it, going through
Yeah,
it.
you do, and you do also have to act, right? Like at some point you got to do something. At some point you have to wake up and take action, or something happens, and you have to respond to it. But I do feel that in general, we're living in a moment where introspection is not a very valuable activity.
Mm.
And I think that it deserves to have its critique, like there's navel gazing and then there's taking action. But I do feel like one of my critiques of our current moment is that we're not allowing the time for introspection, for nuance, for weighing of words before actions are taken. It's just not popular.
Hmm.
And life is all about balances. I think you need to balance. You need to balance action with introspection. And I think right now we've gone way, way, way over to the one side, which is to just act without thinking. Actually, to think as little as possible.
Shoot first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know it's crazy. You're not thinking about what's going to come after that. Oh, we'll see it. Yeah, but I can also see where there's inaction because you can't predict the future.
Right.
It's just so interesting that it tends to be the extremes more. Anything else you want to say about a summer day before we end our chat today?
Just that it's fun and it's lovely and it's funny and it's surprisingly funny and surprisingly warm and human. I find it very satisfying. It's the space we're creating is just a very satisfying space to enter and sort of be with these people for a moment and live with them and live with their problem and then be. I think it's moving and chilling. It's short. It's 70 minutes. I'm just really interested to talk to people who see it. I'm just really interested to see how it strikes them. So I think it's really, I think it's very approachable too. I don't think even though some of the dialogue is a little spare, it's full of humanity. It's full of just people trying to figure out how to be people. And I think people are really going to enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, I love how Wilma and Hothouse, dig deep into this. We do pull layers from our experience, and I think every time I've seen a production at Wilma, I'm talking about it for the next few days, and I'm continuously evolving my overall, thought process of what I experience, and I think that's kind of a testament to the amount of work that you've all done. It's like just little things that you pick up on. It seems subtle, but you're like, wow, like, yeah, that did happen. And that did, because I looked over there at that time, you can
we have really amazing, like Krista Apple is incredible and breathtaking. And Jaime Maceda is doing beautiful work. Campbell O'Hare is just lovely. And Brett Robinson is so fun, and Melanie Finister is just devastating. Like it's such a great cast to be part of, and I want people to see that too.
Absolutely. All right, you heard it, everyone. A summer day, as we wait for summer to arrive, can go on over to the Wilma and get tickets to A Summer Day by Jan Fosse.
Fosse.
Did I say that right? Fosse.
Yeah.
Jan Fosse. Jan Fossa, directed by Yuri Yernov, featuring the Hothouse. It's on stage through the 29th. You can get tickets at Wilma Theater, theater.org. And I said tickets is in plural because theater is more fun with a +1. Professor Ross Beschler, thank you for this wonderful lesson, this unpacking here. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. It was truly a pleasure.
My great pleasure. All right.
Thank you to our guest, Ross Beschler, for joining us on today's podcast. The Broad Street Review podcast is an Emory production. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, visit us online at em3ry.com. Get involved with Broad Street Review. Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com to find out how. While you're there, help keep us running and click donate at the top. There you can also find our social media links. Thank you for your part in keeping the conversation going.